Her story deals with a subculture of heavy metal music that some feel is sending a dangerous message to your kids.
The forces of evil on the dark side of devil right.
And I want to talk tonight about the devil and demons and witches and wizards.
And we just mix it up with hardcore and aggression and come out with something we think's an original sound.
Loud, fast, heavy, you know.
Well, what do you got?
What do you got?
Welcome back to another episode of the Riff Worship Podcast. It's me, the bald one, Baldini, joined by my two best friends in music, life, afterlife, whatever we've got coming for us at this point. We're all fucking old. Austin Paulson, Justin Swindle. How have you guys been?
Great. Everything in the world is good. Nothing is bad or frightful. Good week to turn towards music to get away from everything else happening.
I just say keep scrolling. There's no harm in it. Just keep scrolling. It's all good. Good for the brain.
I'm glad we got you for a second week back from Horsetown.
Dude, it's been rough. But it's over. It's done.
What is it?
Who knows? Who knows? There's a scale there, right?
It's a town run completely by horses.
But anyway, last week's episode went really well. We had a lot of fun with that one. We talked about Kiss with old CT. It was a fun time, fun morning. We're going to go in a completely separate direction from Kiss on this record that we're talking about today.
That's safe to say.
Yeah, it's safe, evident, whatever. I don't think it's any new news to you guys that death metal is probably my favorite form of extreme music. It could be old school sounding stuff. It could be stuff that's far more technical, ambient, atmospheric, doom driven, whatever. But I do really enjoy death metal in the brutal realm. The stuff that's influenced by Cannibal, Suffocation, Cryptopsy. It's got a little bit of technical flash to it. And man, the band we're digging into today is no stranger to tech, prog, weird time signatures, different things. It's a weird band to talk about. It's Defeated Sanity. We're going to be talking about their 2013 album Passages Into Deformity, which is the album I first became really aware of the band about, or really aware of the band with. I believe I saw an interview where Trevor from the Black Dahlia Murder was discussing the band. He might have even been discussing the album that preceded this record, which is great. You should check out any album in this band's catalog. But this was the one I was really gung-ho with. It's the first one I pre-ordered. The vinyl was delayed about a year, I'm sure, with pressing plants and everything. But I remember getting it and just holding it in my hand and looking at that fantastic artwork that it's got. And it just looked like another scene out of one of the 9 levels of hell to me, which a lot of their artwork does. But this band encompasses everything I enjoy about brutal death metal, as well as many other things, because this band has a lot more going on in it than just slams and grunting vocals. I could go on, and we will, but my question to each of you is, and I'm safe to assume I know the answer, have either of you listened to this band at all?
Nah.
I remember when they came out with that record last year, correct?
Yep, sure did.
You did a review on it.
Mm-hmm.
Can't say that I really dove into the entire record, but I was at least familiar because you have brought them up before. And
sure.
The record was on our radar. This is the first time I've ever listened to this band. I didn't know much about them. I had an idea based off of the cover and the way you explained it, but no prior history with Defeated Sanity.
Well, what'd you think?
I mean, it's technical for sure. It's intense. I would say that my biggest takeaway was that Lily Gruber is a fucking animal. Obviously he's very proficient drummer. He's doing a lot of unique and crazy things behind the kit, but he also writes a lot of the music from what we found out in the research. So to have that brain that thinks of things in kind of all aspects of this form of music, you got to be a special kind of lunatic for that, I think. So I think that's like my biggest takeaway from listening to this record.
Swindle.
I mean, I didn't take away anything like it didn't like jar my emotions. I wasn't like moved by it, but it was fun to listen to. There are a lot of crazy wild shit is happening. It is not it's not I got a 35 Chevy on a 55 frame. It's not that.
I could never be that. What I will say though, it's not typically, I like death metal. This is not typically the death metal that I gravitate towards.
Right.
And I think maybe I had to like kind of remind myself, like, there were aspects of this record I liked, aspects of it I didn't like. But I think if I had to remind myself, well, this is like brutal death metal, so maybe this is just like in the context of this genre, I think this is maybe just what it has to be. Like, this is some of the aspects, some of the tones, some of the things that are going on. I'm like, it may not be for me personally, but I have to remember, like, in the genre, like, this is,
you mean the guitar with no mids?
Oh yeah, get those things out of there. They're scooped the fuck out.
So their current guitarist Vaughn, there's a video interview he did a few months ago, and he's like, "Yep, no mids," and like it shows this amp, and the mids are just backed off completely. It's all highs and bass. It's that like Tomb of the Mutilated guitar sound, right? Mids are gone out of there. But this is probably one of the better blendings of their styles, of that technical and progressive side meeting the brutality of like old school Suffocation, Devourment, all of those bands combined. Whereas later on, the band they never deviate too far from this sound, but there's so much more, and the band gets more proficient as it goes on. The guitar is kind of an afterthought in this band personally. Like, you hear the rhythm section, it's like every transition to every single thing is like a lesson in, oh, there's 47 time signatures and tempo changes lodged into here. What I found out about this band in the research for this that I somehow missed when I listened to the Garza episode a couple years ago was that they didn't record to a click. The only album they ever recorded to the click was the most recent one, and they set the click in a way that the tempo still shifted. So it was like a real band. So, or like a real band getting in the room with everything. And they apparently recorded this record in a room together, which is pretty fucking wild, because you can hear those tempo shifts all over this album and speeds kind of moving here and there, but it's fucking nuts. But we'll get into the record much later, as well as maybe some more information on brutal death metal and what that is. But let's dig into the back history of this band a little bit before we get into the album. The band formed in either 93, 94, 95. There's some disputes going on. There's no disputes, but there's some conflicting information there between Lille Gruber and his father, Wolfgang Tusk. Sorry, Wolfgang Tesk. My brain was going Kevin Smith there for a minute. Wolfgang Tesk. Lille was like 11 or 12 years old when the band formed, but he had been playing guitar and writing since like 6 at this point. And just really gravitated towards heavier sides of music and thrash bands and Iron Maiden and you name it. But his father, who is much older, obviously, because, you can't be 6 and have an 8-year-old father. This isn't Don't Be a Menace. His dad was into like later hard rock, early heavy metal, the classics like Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple. But he was also a fan of like, I think the quote here was used as like jazz rock bands. So like Mahavishnu Orchestra, Chick Corea, stuff like that. So you get all of this writing and these different blendings of styles of like father and son just playing together. And there's even some like stories there of like Wolfgang kind of grew up in this, or they all lived in this like commune or cult or
it seemed
something
like
going on there.
It was a eclectic group of people for sure. Maybe like a nomadic kind of style of upbringing, but Yeah, very like it seemed very hippie commune type of thing.
Yeah.
So a lot of different ideas and music. I'm sure that kids in Germany or wherever were probably not exposed to at this age. I'm sure.
And I think that's where the name difference is there too. I think that has a lot to do with it as well. But it is pretty wild to know that, like, hey, forming a band with my dad when I'm 12, 13 years old, I know personally that would have never have happened. One of us would have ended up dead. And it would have been the slowest. It would have been the slowest moving. Open, kicked that door wide open. I'm
Yeah,
done.
I feel that too. I feel that too, Dylan. Me and my dad could have never made music together ever.
But as I mentioned, Lille gets into early heavy metal. Your standard or your big four thrash bands. I don't want to say standard, but like you look at bands like Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, Overkill was mentioned, which is a great, underrated thrash band in my opinion. Iron Maiden was a big one. I think the quote from the Garza podcast was, I was playing with all of my Masters of the Universe toys, and then I heard Iron Maiden and went like, I don't want to play toys anymore. I just want to do this and listen to this. And then he mentioned, his dad even stepped forth and was like, you're too young for death metal right now. You can't do this. You can do it when you're older. You can listen to it when you're older. And of course, what's he do? He's like, I got to listen to more of this shit. So like there's stories about like tape trading and reading early magazines because the area of Germany that these gentlemen grew up in and lived in you're still dealing with, it's really hard to get some of these imported records in, and it was mainly tapes and that sort of thing, or like tape trading. But he started to, I guess it was around 1993, he started to hear death metal kind of come into play. Obituaries, Cause of Death, and Death's Human were some of the first ones that he really gravitated towards. And then he went into like Cannibal Corpse and the early Suffocation stuff, which is, very fundamental. And you hear a lot of that on this record that we're talking about and in the band's catalog. And one thing I've learned about the early portions of this band is that prolific as shit. Like just continuously writing and putting stuff out. I don't want to miss this. The band's name comes from the title track of the debut EP of a Japanese death metal band named Defiled. And if you can find that anywhere, we would love to hear it, or I would love to hear it personally, because it's impossible to find. We found like a short clip for our notes, and that's about it. But just hearing that short clip, you can hear some of that going in there. But you get all that. The band's starting, playing, writing. Lille has written, I think he mentioned upwards of 150 to 150 compositions in between the ages of like 6 and 16. Obviously, there was some like a small 8-track Tascam going on there with that. And I imagine learning to write, learning to record, all whilst like listening to this fundamental music coming into your brain has to obviously impact that, because you're getting all of this very old school death metal, this, classic fundamental bands for heavy metal music, thrash fundamentals, all while your dad is probably just playing Mahavishnu Orchestra or early Yes or any of those bands like that. Miles Davis is probably being thrown around there, especially like for some reason I just hear Bitches Brew because it's fucking batshit, and this band is kind of batshit. I go back to our Cryptopsy episode with None So Vile, and I hear that, and I hear a lot of that in this music as well. And there's no way that wasn't kind of tossed in the mix there throughout the years either. But anyway, the band continues forward. You get multiple demos and singles and different releases from the band. I mean, hell, there were 3 demos in between like 94, 95, and 98 that not only had Wolfgang and Lille on it, but it also had Lille's brother, Jonas. Sorry, German pronunciations. that were on it. And it seems to be the demo from 1998, which is the Withdrawn from Beauty demo. Seems to be the one that really started to move the band forward. Lille is even quoted as saying that the band really started to take off in 99. So this is the one where they started playing more kind of out of town shows in Southern Germany, started getting in touch with real band members, as he said, not just like, hey, my brother can do this for a little bit. I got a buddy that can come in and play guitar. But they also started to support some larger touring acts such as Christian and Voivod as well, in which, again, Voivod, really weird band, really kind of discordant, disjointed stuff. And Christian is his like early stage brutal death metal, very much in line of like Vader from South America as well. But not to like, I've never really checked out much from these demos because it's really hard to find. I know they were a little bit more kind of old school tech metal or technical death metal in this vein, very much like Atheist, very much like the first Cynic record, Cynic demos for that fact, and kind of Death's technical jazz influence era in there with some of the brutal elements that you got. It seems like the longer the band went on, the more aggressive and more kind of discordant they got. But anyway, 2000, you get a couple new members in the band. You get Tino Kohler on bass, Marcus Keller on vocals, and Christian Munzner on guitars, who would go on to play in Obscura, Necrophagist, and Spawn of Possession, which, if you've never checked those out, great technical death metal bands. Spawn of Possession is extremely technical. Necrophagist is a classic band at this point, and Obscura is still going to this date. But then you get a couple more demos and splits and singles during this time frame, up until 2002, 2003-ish. During this same time frame, Lille has started taking classical guitar lessons that he went on to take for almost a decade, thus helping him move to Berlin and go to the University of Berlin Arts, or University of Arts Berlin, sorry. Which, I mean, taking classical guitar lessons on top of what you already know in your musical education is just going to make you that much more fluent. Oh my God, he went away. It's going to make you just that much more fluent in your playing style. And I don't hear any classical guitar stuff or stylings on any of the records I've heard. I'm sure if I listened a little bit more thoroughly, which is really hard with this band sometimes, I would find a little bit of that. But whilst being moved to Berlin, Lille would take some side jobs to help kind of, I'm sure help further his musical education, as well as kind of get himself out there. He played with artists such as Belphegor, Mucopus, Mucopus, and Feeble Minded, which I like that name a lot. It's very fitting to my brain wavelength at this point in time. But you get that. Band goes through all the growth periods. They finally get to release their first record in 2004, which is Prelude to Tragedy, which was released on Grind Ethic Records. I had to make sure I got that name right. I kept wanting to go Grind Athletic for a couple days. I was like, that's not fucking right. And plus, those two things don't go together, at least to my knowledge. Again, lineup on that is Lily, his father, Wolfgang, Tino, and Marcus. Christian had left the band at this point, so Christian was only there for like the demo, one of the demos or promos or what it was called. Hell, this was a period of time where bands were releasing MCDs, which is just a mini CD, which I don't know if it was a smaller thing or if it was just a CD with a couple tracks on it. Just call it a single, I'm sorry. I'm sure it was like a country difference in that. You get a couple other promos in there. You get a promo in 2005 that you've got the first recorded instance of Jacob Schmidt on bass. He was considered a session musician at this point in time. You also get Christian Kuhn on guitars for the first time. There's a funny story about Christian joining the band. I believe they were doing bass tryouts and Christian just happened to come along with one of the guys that was trying out for bass. Lille and the other guys in the band really liked Christian and kind of kept him in mind. They did not go with the bassist. It was not Jacob. So you move forward and you already keep this guy in mind of like, all right, we want him if something does happen. And the band became a 2-guitar band for a period of time. Again, moving forward, I don't want to like gloss over Jacob's introduction to the band, but basically Jacob was in another band called Cerebric Turmoil. A lot of these death metal names get really drawn out. There's a lot of medical diction in a lot of it. But Jacob was in that band. The guys kind of knew each other from the scene. Jacob ends up joining the band later on. His first official release with the band would be Psalms of the Moribund, which was released on Grind Ethic Records as well. And this was recorded at Sound Lodge Studios, which is where Passages was recorded at as well.
Yeah, shit. They even did a fucking split together, motherfuckers on
that's right
both sides, which is crazy. Double duty. I wonder if they like toured together.
That who fucking knows? I'm sure there were shows being played together at this point too. I don't think Germany's scene was like massively big. From what I know, like you had the German thrash bands, you had a couple death metal bands at this point in time, but this type of death metal has always ended up playing like these huge festivals. Like Obscene Extreme was a big festival for the period of time. Mountains of Death was one that came later, where like the largest bands would be like Devourment playing those, or Suffocation would be headlining on those large festivals of that. But the band went on to record a couple more promos, a split that Austin alluded to, and they released another split with, God, look at those fucking band names, called Unleashing the Seed of Parasite, a split with Moonfog, Venom, and Splattered Orgasm. There you go. This was Wolfgang Tesk's last recording with the band. Sadly, about a year after this was recorded, Wolfgang passed away due to cancer. I believe there's a quote stating that Wolfgang left because he started to get some numbness in his hand as well, and I'm sure that kind of takes in there.
Because I think this the track that's used on this split was like maybe from a promo earlier. So like, yes, that's like the last release he's technically on.
Right.
He had like left like maybe even had to step back maybe a couple of years before it even was put out.
Yeah, that seems about right. I think it was mentioned. I think the quote is from like 2008 when he left with the hand issues. And this is probably where I first read about the band, was around this time period. Decibel did a great article on them back in like 2010, I think, with their Willow Tip signing for Chapters of Repugnance. And it discussed, I learned back then that this band had gone through umpteenth vocalist at this point in time. But the band signs to Willow Tip Records, which is a classic death metal label at this point, up there with like New Standard Elite and Season of Mist and all those great labels. They sign with Willow Tip. Chapters of Repugnance is the first release for Willow Tip at this point in time. It was released in 2010. Initially, it was supposed to come out in 2009, but as you'll learn with this band, they don't release anything until it's done, and done by their terms. But what's cool about this record is, yes, you get a bit of a vocal change on this album. However, you get a death metal, a brutal death metal legend with AJ Magana on this album, who has played in bands such as Deprecated and Disgorge. They got in contact with AJ through a friend of the band and a former bandmate of AJ's, Derek Boyer of Suffocation. If you know anything about Suffocation and Derek Boyer's tenure with the band, he's kind of a champion of all these brutal death metal bands. Derek's got a lineage and a track sheet as long as you could even imagine. He's played with everybody from Decrepit Birth to Deprecated, as mentioned, Dying Fetus. I think he played with Deeds of Flesh for a little while. Like a laundry list of bands he's played with. But he's the guy when it comes to that style of music. But they got in contact with him. They wanted him to fly. They flew him over to Europe a couple times here and there. But I think there's some expenses kind of going on with that. I mean, it's brutal death metal. There's no money going on in this subgenre of sorts. I would definitely put it on par with maybe grind. Like there's no money at all. I mean, it's just aggressive, intense, borderline nonsensical music in in a standpoint, but I fucking love it so much. And they did a couple like releases of like demos and stuff like that. But anyway, now we get to the album I made everybody listen to today. Passages Into Deformity, released in 2013, February 5th of 2013, or February 5th of 2013 to be exact, through Willowtip Records, is the second release for the band. It's funny to state that the band thought this was going to be more of an old school sounding record in comparison to Chapters or Psalms. They stated like more 90s inspired riffs and slams, and like, yeah, it's there for sure. Hey, you're not missing it. There's some slamming grooves all over this record. And the band was very prone to have to travel around for practices and rehearsals. Some guys traveling up to 3-4 hours at a time. But the band was all still willing to get in the same room to write these tracks together. I believe Lille and Jacob lived in the same town for a long period of time. I think up until like 2017 when Jacob moved to, I think, LA. It was either the Bay Area or LA, one of those two. They did have, and we'll touch on this in a bit, but they did have a vocalist change on this album. Constantine
Laring?
I don't have his last name. Right. Constantine Laring, but they refer to him as Connie, so that's what I'm going to use to help us out. But Connie joined the band on this album as well. They went with the same production on same studio for this, as I mentioned before. But the band produced the album themselves. Looks like they recorded it from September 11th to October 12th. So about a month overall. Sorry, October 4th, 2012. I saw the 12 at Sound Lodge Studios as well. Guest vocals from AJ Magana. They brought him back in. Frank Rennie from Internal Bleeding, another early slam, brutal death metal vocalist. Brian Forgu of Syphilic and Gut Rot. Don't know anything about those two bands. The bit of research I did is with brutal death metal, there's a lot of misogynistic album covers. No stranger on those albums. It's fucking there for sure. You're not... Listen, if you're a fan of brutal death metal, it's either you accept it and it's there and it's part of it, or you're just like, I'll listen to the bands that don't do it. There's enough of it for everybody, trust me. And sound effects by John Ingman of ex-Brodequin. Brodequin's from Knoxville, Tennessee, surprisingly. They put out a record this past year as well. But I'm assuming those sound effects were just him sitting in. I hope he was doing the mouth sounds. Just
the mukbang part. God,
eating clam chowder. Names on the microphone.
Just eating dry shredded wheat, just mulling it over in his mouth.
He's just blowing on it. Hot.
God. The minute I heard that, I forgot it was on the record. I went, okay, someone's calling this out, and I can't fucking wait for it.
Fucking potato soup ass party.
Goddamn.
The hog call.
Italian wedding soup ass part. Fucking minestrone section on the goddamn record ass part.
Happy birthday, CJ. But there is a lyrical concept for the record, which I didn't know they were saying anything.
Yeah.
I love death metal. And I love it unabashedly. But ain't nobody going to tell me that they're always saying shit. There are some guys you can understand really well. George being a very evident one. Like, you can hear that man enunciate. You can tell what he's saying. But when it comes to brutal death metal, it's not a lot of it. I don't necessarily have to know what they're saying either, and I don't have to hear it. I just need to know that it sounds like a fucking monster going to town, or like a bear. I once showed Austin there's a job for a cowboy side project called Serpent's Hypnosis, and I sent it to him, and he's like, sounds like the fucking muck monster. I'm like, yep, that's what we're looking for. But that is background on the record. Let's dig into this fucking dense record. I do want to say one thing, speaking of dense. The band mentioned that they had really overdone, or maybe had done the dense death metal guitar sounds really hard on the two albums preceding this, Chapters and Psalms. and they mentioned that, oh, this album needs a little bit more clarity to it. And I went, it's there, but it's there's a slight mid-frequency bump. We'll say that. But it's all highs and lows. And even the album after this is interesting as well, too, in like guitar tones. But I can tell you this, you're not getting any mids on this fucking record at all.
Oh, they were they scooped them all out.
They were scooped as shit.
I think the production on this, I think because you are playing at such an intense speed and also the tone of the guitar.
Yeah.
Because it's sensitive. It's hot. Like if you're scraping it or like you fucking even graze over it, you're hearing all of it. I think at times it is very hard to decipher what is actually going on because they are playing so fast. But not to say there aren't like, I really like some of the more, I don't know, I guess like jazz parts for lack of a better term. Some of those like melodic parts where it does end up taking a breath and you're able to like transition. But like when it's going really fast, it is very hard for me personally to kind of pick out like what the fuck is actually going on. Because honestly, it just sounds like a wall of wind coming at you.
It's way easier to tell what's happening on bass.
Yeah,
to hear what's happening on guitar.
Wonder why Dill likes this band so much. And I'm glad you say that because you look at like on the guitar end of it, it almost does feel like more of a textural instrument, doesn't it? Like just getting the kind of mind right. And like you can really hear it on those grooves that come in. And this album's no stranger to any of those big fucking heavy grooves because not only are they slams, there's just huge, almost Cannibal style riffs. Like you look at the last track on the album, Martyrium, which has, it's essentially two riffs. It's those huge lumbering ones in the middle that make me think of something like Scourge of Iron or The Wretched Spawn or something like that. Just these huge lumbering riffs. But you've also got it blended with all these proggy parts. The drums and bass, Lily and Jacob's relationship with how they interplay is bonkers. There are points that it sounds like Jacob is soloing on top of this, and it's just it's a segue. That's it. It's just a segue. I mean, there is, I don't know what how they're doing what they're doing. And the fact that they're playing this in a room together and writing this in a room together and just able to go, hey, that sounds great. Why don't you put this here? And I know they know how to communicate with like time signatures. I know they know music theory. I fucking don't, especially to this nature. You know, they're in there going like, yeah, play that in 11/16 again. Sure. But we're going to do 5/4 right after that. Okay. Like it just sounds fucking cool to me. But the bass is very prominent on this record. And there are points where it is like the focal point on there. You look at a track like Verblending or
Verblending.
Yeah, I had it right. Good. I thought it was Verblending. You look at a track like Verblending, Verblendung, sorry.
I don't know.
You look at a track like Verblendung that starts out with this bass kind of gallop that sets the groove and like it kicks into that groove. And there's different points where, you know, the bass is transitioning and helping it transition. And then that track's got these great devourment grooves on it. And the guitars there's even points on that track where the guitars are playing what sounds like in a different time signature than the drums and bass that are going on under it. And it's like, fuck, you know, what are we doing? This is madness. And it doesn't sound like the band is just throwing shit at a wall for it to stick either. It all flows pretty fucking well. I mean, yeah, are there points in here that the band's like, let's play this really wild part, this proggy jazz part? Absolutely. But it sounds like it's pretty seamless. It doesn't just sound like riff soup, even though it is extremely dense.
At the end of that Verblendung song, there's a fucking like hip hop sounding drum break that plays for like the last 30 seconds. I thought that was funny, and I liked that. I liked in the first song, Initiation, the second riff, they play it for a while and like dead in the middle, they do a transition, but they're transitioning to the same exact part. It's like we're playing a part, we're doing a transition, then we're playing the same part for the same amount of times.
Yeah. Their transitions are really good. And,
Yeah.
I feel like, as we've mentioned in bands that kind of play at this like velocity, the big key is having to change up your tempo and, that's the only way that it's going to make sense or like feel like there's other parts going on to me. Like, I don't know. It just, that's how you keep it in, because you could just play the whole time and go like, I mean, the blasts are crazy. Like the way the speed at which they are playing is genuinely insane. There's a lot of endurance clearly that needs to go there, but in order to keep the listener hooked, you're going to have to like change it up. And I do think they transition very well. It's very tight sounding. If this is, I would say definitely a headphones record, because you will get like it cut out and it'll like rest. They'll like full on, just full stop for like a second. And then maybe like there'll be like a guitar pan that like kind of like sets up the next part, or maybe there's like a fucking drum fill that like will be in your left. I don't know. It's pretty unique and interesting that way. I really do wish there were more of the kind of like dizzying jazz parts. That's kind of what I like about this record the most. You mentioned death earlier. I think there's like definitely like almost like that kind of like Chuck Schuldiner like jazz kind of take it for a walk kind of thing, or like maybe where it like falls apart almost. It sounds like later era death to me. Definitely, obviously, the more progressive sounding stuff. I like that they have variation as far as like the blasting sections. There's a lot of different breakdowns as well. So they keep it fresh. I didn't necessarily like everything on this record, but I do like that there were moments that I'm like, I was able to like kind of sink my teeth into it.
I like Naraka, the second song, opens up with that fucking bass tap part, and then
that was
going into like the I guess it's the slam, one of the slams of that song. They do more of like the bass tapping in the breakdown. I like that a lot. That song kind of to me seemed like it was two songs put together because
it's long.
Is it though?
In like dead ass in the middle of the song, there's just like all the instruments drop out and there's just like bass by itself, and then they start a completely different like portion of the song. And I was like, this seems like it should have been two songs.
It's
not that's a complaint.
It's a short record. We've talked like it's 38 minutes and some change.
Yeah.
But a few of the tracks are pretty long. Like Naraka is like one of the longer tracks on the record. You get a couple tracks that are pushing 7 minutes. And when you're playing music like this, like 7 minutes of this style, particularly this style of brutal death metal, which is, I think the band is quoted as calling it progressive brutal death metal, which I would agree. It is something. I mean, there's stuff on here like in Naraka that Swindle mentioned in that second half. There's stuff that sounds like Atheist, even like, if you're familiar with them, but there's also stuff that sounds like Suffocation, like style breakdowns in there. I want to go back to Initiation and how the track opens with this ungodly sounding vocal take that is just locked in with every fucking stab from the band. That is horrifying. I remember the first time I heard that, I went, whatever this is, I need more. Obviously, Lord Worm is unhinged as well, and knowing the story about that, it's like, I'm not a fan of the early Cannibal stuff with Chris, but saying that Chris wasn't an influence on vocalists that were to come, I would be incorrect in saying that. And I hear a lot of that. Hearing a band like this makes me appreciate those early Cannibal records a bit more, like Butchered at Birth, Tomb of the Mutilated. I'm a huge Suffocation fan, and helps me appreciate that band's early output as well. Frank Mullen kind of being the god of this style of vocals. There are some more straightforward tracks on here. I believe it is Verses of Deformity itself is probably the most straightforward track on the entire record. It doesn't have a whole lot of craziness to it. It's still got dissonance on top of dissonance on it. Like the guitars are playing at such a speed, but it's just fucking dissonance all over it.
Big solo in that song.
Yeah.
Yep. There's like 2 solos on the whole record, I believe. 2 or 3.
That makes sense.
Well,
Well, I'm
Who
just
has
saying,
room to do it?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta go. You gotta be able to do it, and it was very I don't know, like Slayer-esque to me, I suppose.
Yeah.
With like the tremolo
yeah.
bar and everything like that. Little bit more tuneful than some of those solos. I'll leave it at that. But there's a couple moments on there that I was actually surprised when I heard it. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
all right.
I forgot they were on the record.
Yeah.
Because it's that I'll say this. I did a review on this band's most recent album, and I did the most recent Malignancy records as well. And those are two very kind of known brutal death metal bands. And it's a lot of music. It really is.
Wasn't there a connection there though? Wasn't like actually
there is.
Yeah.
Yes. So Jacob of Defeated Sanity played bass on the most recent Malignancy album. And Malignancy does this fantastic thing where they kind of write the never ending riff. That's their thing. And it's very on par with Lille's writing style as well. And they do it so well and it's so catchy, but it's a lot of fucking music to take in. Even in an album that's under 40 minutes, it's a lot. Like if you even slow the tempos down on this a bit, it's probably going to push an hour to 70 minutes when it comes to that. If they're playing it, at more of a, let's say a BPM of 180 as opposed to fucking 240, 260 on their slow paces here. I mean, they're going to deal with that. We've mentioned all the off-kilter jazz stuff. I will talk about the bass playing on this record and with this band till the end of time. But there's a section in the song "The Purging" that Jacob is basically soloing. And it's all locked in with the drums, but like you hear it and you're like, fucking what's going on? There were points I was just laughing at this record. And I've been listening to this album for 12 years. And there's still parts on there that just get me pumped and I listen to it. I come back to this one a lot. I like the band's full catalog. I really do. And the new stuff is fantastic. But I keep coming back to this one because it was the first one I ever heard. And there's still stuff on here that inspires me because this is the type of shit that makes me go, okay, I really got to start practicing with a metronome a bit more. With
they
this.
don't. They didn't. Why would you?
Well, sorry, go ahead.
There's a spot in The Purging, a spot in Lusting for Transcendence, and a spot in, I think, Martyrium that like the bass and guitar are like doing like kind of more jazzy, like it's not like dueling and it's not like some fucking Thin Lizzy dueling, trading off, harmonizing guitar parts, but they're like doing runs together for a while. And I like those parts of those three songs a lot. Also, I wanted to say about The Purging is the beginning of it is just like fucking full speed ahead. And then it seems like they're about to put the most generic fucking breakdown in the history of breakdowns, just like shoehorned right into it. But then they are like, actually, we're doing a different. And I was like, oh, well, it's a lot cooler that you change it up because it really just seemed like they were just about to throw the most generic breakdown of all time into the middle of the song for nothing.
Dude.
Right after that tribal kind of thing.
The drum and the bass with the phased out guitar and tom part or whatever.
There's phaser on 3 of these tracks.
Easily. At the end, Martyrium and all that shit.
Right.
Yeah, the Purging's cool. That's like one of my favorite songs on the record. And mainly just for like the kind of crazy jazz part at around like 3 minutes in that song.
Yep.
I think the biggest thing too with the bass is definitely the rhythm section I would say is like my favorite part of this record. And with the bass especially, with this form of music, we've mentioned again many times on the show where when you're playing at certain speeds, sometimes the bass is just locking in because like what else are you going to do? It's going to get lost in there. But he cuts through. He's like actually playing parts like unique to him, his arrangement, his instrument. That was really surprising, and like I enjoyed those moments when they came through and cut through on the record.
What I really enjoy about the writing process with this band is we know this is Lille's, thing. We know he is the primary writer, but it's always been stated, he's like, yeah, I write basically everything with understanding from the rest of the guys. Like they have input on their parts and different things. Cause I think Jacob, as the years have gone by, has written quite a bit as well, but his style locks in so well with Lille's that it's like, it's the same thing, right? There are tracks on this record to me that sound like this is Defeated Sanity. It's a sum of all the holes, but it sounds like them. Like you look at a later album track like Frenzy, right? Shorter tracks, like 2.5 minutes long, which is terrifying to think about because there's so much that goes into one of these tracks. Like that track sounds like Defeated Sanity. Like you could give that track to anybody and go, here's what this band sounds like, even in 2025. But to know that there's still a consideration for everybody, that's a very kind of a jazzy thing too, of like, okay, here's what I want it to sound like. It's going to be in 7/8, but I have these parts, everything's structured together. What do you guys think? I want to hear what you guys can bring to the table, right? It does seem like everybody's just on the same page with what they want the band to sound like. And it does seem like with each record they release, everybody still has this understanding of what they want it to be. I mean, there are so many parts on this record that I just go back to, and it's like, it feels like finger flaying parts, just like shit. How do you play that fast? How do you play those things that way? And then you look at the effort and the work these guys have put in, and you see the dedication to their craft. What we haven't discussed much are the vocals on here, and it's primarily because brutal death metal is what brutal death metal is. But Connie's vocals on this record are great. He does what I want from a brutal death metal vocalist, which is I want it to sound like some monster on vocals. I want it to sound like, like Oscar the Grouch got a mic, and just fucking going for it. And it does. Like he does a fantastic job. You've got the guest vocal spots from AJ, and God, I'm gonna butcher his name. I want to say Frank because it's New York, but I know that's not it. I was right. Frank from New York. But you have these great these vocal spots from AJ and Frank on this album. And you also have some songwriting from Wolfgang still on the track Naraka, with as kind of a tribute to him as well. And this would be one of those albums I would give to somebody and still preface it with, hey, it's brutal death metal. If you've never listened to it, this probably isn't the record to get you into it, but this is still the one to go, hey, give it a shot. This gives you a better understanding of maybe what brutal death metal could be.
I did want to.
Yes.
There's a fucking dedicated ass drum solo
in the end,
almost at the very end of the album in Martyrium.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
It is a drum solo. And what's funny is that's the first time that I went, oh, it can just end with the solo, but they actually bring the riff motif back and the whole band just kind of fires into it and then it stops. Short record ends with a weird thing, begins with an extreme thing, ends with a weird thing, which makes it as extreme as it could possibly be for the time. As I mentioned, production on this record was done at Sound Lodge Studios in Germany. Again, there was a DVD that was recorded around the same time as some studio footage and some writing footage. I couldn't find hide nor hair of any of that. I've seen some of the footage from around that time frame, and I'm assuming that is from that DVD of the guys in the studio, and seeing them just playing in the studio on this very rudimentary kind of practice gear is pretty fucking wild to that as well. It's a brutal, gnarly, just gross sounding record. There's not much more to add to that. We've gone over the production on this a good bit. There are some lyrical concepts that have to do with kind of abstract death and like more spiritual aspects of death and going on. Drug abuse is in there, and just all of this stuff to do with the human spirit. as much, probably more so on this record than you got with the albums before it, which were just like, here's a lot of gore and horror, take it, which is still an aspect of death metal I really enjoy. One of my favorite bands, if not my favorite death metal band, being Cannibal Corpse, and like, God, it's like watching a zombie film. It's like watching a monster movie. But I don't get that with this band, and that's what I like about this band too, is it's not just strictly that, because there is a lot of brutal death metal that's just about gore and gross out stuff, and I like the bands that don't always rely on that, like a lot of bands that do, but I prefer the ones that don't. The band is fantastic. I don't want to miss talking about the artwork on this either. The artwork evokes a very gross feeling. It looks like the guy is wrapped in, or a person, looks like a person is just wrapped in what looks like a straitjacket. It's got all these different beings coming out at him. It's green. It stands out. The band's kind of known for using greens and yellows on their album covers a lot. It was done by Toshiro Egawa, who has worked with Devourment, Ingested, Malignancy, and many, many more. And then I believe the logo was done by John Zig, who has done tons of work with everybody. This band's logo has become synonymous. It's I've seen tons of merch with it, with this band, and like tons of forums, tons of videos and all sorts of shit with that logo. And it's kind of become part of the upper echelon of like death metal logos to me. But after listening to this record, knowing what we've got, the band did some touring for the record as well. Albeit the band's apparently done more American tour dates than they have European tour dates, which is interesting to think. But on this album, they didn't really do a whole lot of American touring right out the gate. I think that came much later. The band takes a lot of time in between records as well. So like it'll be a few shows here or there, but it looks like the band did some stuff through Russia and Belarus, which at one point in time, I believe Belarus was one of the last remaining dictatorships in Europe, or at least this era of Europe. There's a great story in the Cannibal Corpse Centuries of Torment DVD where they got stuck between borders for like 36 hours where they couldn't go anywhere in going into Belarus. The band also did some tour dates with Vomitory, Beyond Creation, with Vomitory and Beyond Creation in Japan in 2013. So if you ever have a chance to see this band, go do it. I believe they're going to be on tour this year with Sanguisugabog and Despised Icon, which is hitting the Chicagoland area. But the aftermath of this record, the band released this 2013. The band's already starting to write what is to come for the next record. And the next record is essentially 2 EPs put together, or 2 records put together. It's a blending. It's 2 separate EPs for the 2 styles that this band embraces the most. One is the caveman slamming, brutal, grooving death metal that they're known for. And the other side is the kind of early 90s inspired tech metal, technical progressive death metal. And if you get a chance to listen to that, even the production sounds on both of those are vastly different. I believe the vocals on the tech side is actually the vocalist that was on Cynic's Traced in Air doing the aggro vocals. I think he's the vocalist of Exist as well. Whereas the brutal side is, you listen to the production of that, the guitars are like, if there were no mids on this record, non-existent on that one. Like Swindle has noted as saying it sounded like there was a pillow over the guitars.
Yeah. It didn't sound great.
I mean, it's as gruesome sounding as possible, and but it's a fun record to listen to. It was almost like, we've shown that we can do this. What can we do differently from there? Let's do something fun. And I think that's what it comes down to, is these guys are having fun writing what they want to write, and they write things that they really want to play. They played Nashville one time, and I kicked myself for not being able to go. And it was almost 10 years ago that they played it. It was some big death metal fest at the end. And I think I'm a slave to my capitalist job, so I ended up not being able to go. But I know if they get anywhere near here, I've got to fucking go. Like it's impossible not to see this band. But a little bit of touring, a little bit of aftermath from this. As I mentioned at the top of the episode, check out all of their records. They're fun. You're probably going to find something you enjoy in every single one of them, be it slams, be it grooves, be it old school inspired stuff, be it technical, be it progressive leaning stuff, be it, just going in to want to hear something ugly. You're going to get it. Takeaway from this record. What did you guys take away from this record overall?
I like, when I was getting into like kind of aggressive underground music, the shit I was drawn to was like mathy and a lot of atonal shit. Just kind of somehow I was automatically drawn to like nonsensical music, and that's the shit from this album that I really like. Is the like super dense, like not like musically dense, but like brain matter dense, fucking atonal, nasty, weird shit. I really like that stuff from this. I like personally I didn't care about the vocalists. I can't understand any of the vocals, and I didn't try to look any of the lyrics up. Is one of those things where it's like, don't ask any questions that you don't want the answers to. So I was like, well, if I don't know what he's saying, I don't have to know what he's saying. But the weirdo shit from the album, it like was like, I understand this weirdo shit. I get this.
I think that's kind of where I'm at with it too. Like, I feel like, yeah, like as I mentioned before, sometimes it was like hard to like really decipher what the guitars were doing in certain parts. Whether it's just they are so fast and the tone of it is kind of like blurs the playing a little bit. Sometimes the drums I felt like overpowered what the guitars were doing, but those parts are like fun as shit. Like listening to him play drums is just crazy. I think there's just so much going on. Like, I think maybe if I could go back and just listen to the drum parts and just just absolutely be hooked on that. The bass playing's amazing. I think I leaned more into the groovy aspects of this album when there's a little bit more clarity with some of the riffs, and then the jazz parts, the more jazzy, just kind of like, where is this gonna go? Like, what is happening? That shit I liked a lot. And it was also, as I mentioned, it was kind of reminiscent of some of the more like, I don't know, technical adjacent death metal that I was a fan of, more so like the old school stuff. I guess I'm a normie when it comes to this, but like, yeah, just Chuck Schuldiner, like death, kind of more leaning progressive playing. Not really my thing. Fun listen, I'll say that.
When it comes to brutal death metal too, there are so many different avenues of it, right? I think brutal death metal kind of starts with like two bands. To me, it's Suffocation and Cannibal Corpse. That's where it goes. Like, nobody sounded like Cannibal at Butchered at Birth. Nobody sounded like Suffocation on Effigy of Forgotten. Those bands took it and just fucking ran with it. And the bands that came after that, you look at like Internal Bleeding and Dehumanized and all the New York bands, and there's a ton of brutal bands out there now that do really great stuff. There's a ton of bands too that to me aren't that great. You look at a band like Dying Fetus, like they're a classic band now, but they started out as just a brutal slam death band. And I think you look at the musicality now where it's not so much just about raw, brute, just pummeling stuff. There's nuance to it. And I think the bands that have the nuance, such as Defeated Sanity, such as Malignancy, such as Putridity, which is another band I'm a fan of, I hear that nuance and that musical skill that's there and the weird aspects of it, be it dissonance, be it jazz flair, be it whatever it is. It's like, that's the stuff that draws me in. That's the stuff that's musically interesting. There are so many tech bands out there that are great and classic, and I can't get behind it because it does just sound like musical wank to me. Whereas when you blend it with something that's kind of primal, like a lot of the grooves and the swing and the slams on here, it strikes the it strikes my chord of like the things I enjoyed about some deathcore bands, where it's like just primal enough without it being just dumb, without it just going, this is lazy writing, right? You know, there's a massive difference between like Devourment and this band, but they're all in that same subgenre as well. Brutal death metal is weird. There's great things about it. There's things that I don't like about it. There's just runs the gamut. But what I do know is that Defeated Sanity deserves all the praise that they get. They're probably your favorite band's favorite band. You know, favorite death metal band's favorite death metal band. I'll say that. Give it a shot. You know, pick an album out of their catalog. They're not terribly long records either. I think the newest one might have hit 50 minutes. They're quick listens. If you want a lesson in, if you want to feel bad about how good you are at playing your instrument, you could listen to these. You know, if you're a fan of albums such as None So Vile and Cannibal Corpse's Kill, you're probably going to like this a lot. But yeah, I'm glad I got to share this record with you. I'm glad I could choose one that was pretty short too. Glad I actually got the reaction from you guys on this record I thought I was going to get to.
Yeah.
Because I've actually viewed, I even view this record as like the guitars are an afterthought to me. It's there, I can hear it, but it's more so like rhythmically, what can we do with it? And it feels more like maybe some of like the really wild grind guitar that I see where it's just like, let's play this really fast tritone part really quickly without actually having a tonal center kind of thing, right? And that's what it feels like in this form of music. So again, thank you guys for letting me share this with you. Now we're at the point in the episode where we talk about what we've been listening to recently. I've got a wild hair, so I'm going to start us out on this one. At present date, the new Igorrr record has been released. Amen, whatever you want to call it, through Metal Blade Records. It's fucking bonkers. It's got members of Mr. Bungle on it. It's got Scott Ian of Anthrax and Mr. Bungle on a track. What a wild fucking band. Like just shit everywhere. Electronic instruments, orchestral instruments, classic stringed instruments. What a fun, crazy, kooky, groovy, metallic record. It's short too. It's actually just a little bit longer than the record we reviewed today. If you haven't checked it out or that band at all, please check out Amen. Next thing is a single, the newest release from Lamp of Murmuur. I got into this band through their 2023 record, which like caught me at the tail end of the year. I somehow missed it. Really enjoyed that record a lot. Had a lot of like Immortal influence. This track, Forest of Hallucinations, is fucking great. It's a longer track. It's about 9 minutes, 15 seconds, somewhere around that range. But man, it takes you on a journey. And I think the vocals even have like this satire from Satyricon kind of vibe that I like. This very wretchedy kind of sound. Been really looking forward to this band's release this year. I consider this band on par with like Black Braid. Matter of fact, the two bands are on tour together at present time. So really looking forward to that release whenever it comes out.
I'm going to recommend the album Wild, Passionate, Ugly by the band HORSEBOY. I think this album was put out by the band, self-released. It came out on August 29th. It's kind of, it's a dumb genre name, but sasscore. It's like screamo, but sassier, kind of like
Blood Brothers?
Kind of like Blood Brothers.
Yeah.
Orchid near the like gatefold era of Orchid. Kind of maybe number 12 a little bit. That I would describe the album using the title. It's wild. It's fucking ugly sounding and passionate. I think it's really good. My other rec is How I Fell in Love with the Void by the band Intercourse. It came out September 12 via Brutal Panda Records. When this episode comes out, I'll have just seen them at Magbar in Louisville with a band called Nerver, who I also like. But How I Fell in Love with the Void is kind of metalcore, but it makes you feel bad. Intercourse in general
Yeah.
They don't make you feel good.
Beautiful.
Dylan, you liked it, right?
Oh, I loved this record. I saw the cover and was like, and I saw you guys talking about it. I was like, I got to check this thing out. So like, I put it on a drive, like going to the second location that I work at, and was like, oh, okay, I need coffee now, something to make me feel better. Ooh, this is ugly. And I was like in the drive-through of the coffee emporium, and was like, how can I buy this record? I need it now. And like, I've got it sitting over here.
The vocalist does a really good job of having like a line that will just stand out from all the rest of the fucking song. But one of my favorite lines is like, you might call it a nervous breakdown, you might call it depression, but I just call it a Tuesday afternoon. Or something like that. I was just like, oh, fuck, shit.
God damn. Some other additions to a collection of things that'll make you feel good. Gas Chamber, Hemorrhaging Light was a release from 2014 on Iron Lung Records. It's like a Buffalo hardcore punk power violence kind of noise band. I say all of that. It is completely unconventional of those things. Like, it is within that wheelhouse, but it's also like, it's like intense and raw and like fast and very, very like hardcore. But then it's like also very melodic, and they're almost kind of like, I would describe like emo parts as well. There's like some clean sung vocals. It's really unique and interesting. This was kind of a recommendation. I had not heard this band, kind of just jumped into it. Again, quick listen. Very, very unique approach to like any of those tags that I just said, which also kind of for some reason got me to listen to another short record that I was a big fan of when it came out. I think it's pronounced Ramuh. Don't quite know. I think it's like a it's some nerdy reference. Like, I think it's like a Final Fantasy type character. But they have a record. I think it's their only record, Glowing Civilization, from 2018. It was on released on Nerve Alter. This is a kind of international grindcore project featuring Mauro Cordoba from Maruda and Gridlink, who I believe is based in Argentina. He's also in a new band called Barren Path that I'm very much looking forward to their debut record, Grieving. That's going to be out on Willowtip Records October 31st. Lots of records coming out on that date, so look forward to that. One of my favorite vocalists of all time, contemporary, like whatever, big fan of Dylan Walker from Full of Hell, Collapsed Skull, Sword Dream, Sightless Pit. Obviously an American vocalist, currently on tour with Cannibal Corpse and Municipal Waste and Fulci, which Dylan just saw. And very sorry to hear about the passing of his father. I know they're going to be missing a few dates, but the tour looks fun as shit.
Can I add something about that tour?
Please, yeah.
Go see anytime Cannibal Corpse comes to town. They've always been very adamant about bringing bands that they enjoy touring. This is probably the most mixed bill from this band I've ever seen that I've gone to see. And I've seen I think this is number 6 for me that I've seen Cannibal. And the band is like a bulldozer. No matter when you see them, you know what you're fucking getting when you see Cannibal Corpse. It is a barragement of some of the best death metal songs ever written. To me, they're like the death metal Beatles because they're just writing just hits after hit after hit. But I mean, they had Fulci out, which is a newer band. Like, and if you're into like old school sounding, like horror influenced death metal, you got it. The entire tour is kind of horror adjacent. Everybody on there's got a different aspect of it. Full of Hell, completely like cerebral style horror, like one of my favorite grind bands. And calling them a grind band is like selling them short because every record sounds different. And then you get Municipal Waste, which is just a fun fucking band to see live. Tony Foresta in a fucking garbage can and like slinging garbage cans around at this venue and pissing the hot dog cart guy off was stellar. The stage setup for that band was awesome.
That was pretty cool. I had not seen
that. Was so fucking cool.
Yeah, that was cool. And of course, Cannibal, right?
God, seeing the only guy that's got an Iron Bird that hasn't lost his hair and Eric Rutan, like I was probably 10 feet in front of him at certain points, and I could hear him picking like the guitar just to show how aggressive that man plays. You have Brandon Ellis that's filling in for Rob Barrett on this tour. Brandon has played with the Black Dahlia Murder and Arsis in the past. He kind of became like this technical death metal guitarist for hire for a while. Fantastic. Like fills it out. And then you've got Alex and Paul, which are a fantastic rhythm section, arguably one of the best death metal bassists of all time. And then you've got George, who is the best vocalist Cannibal Corpse has ever had. And arguably is one of the best death metal vocalists of all time. He would tell you different. He would always tell you Chuck. But Municipal Waste had a great piece of merch there that night. It was a white shirt, and it had George in what looked like a cowboy hat, and it just said "Kill Nashville" on it. And it was just so awesome. And like from a distance, Swindle will get this. It looked like Terry Gordy, the wrestler, from a distance on the shirt. I was like, motherfucker. Matt kept going, is that Kid Rock on that shirt? Like from a distance, I was like, no, it's George. Like, who is it? I'm like, it's Neck. It's the Neck. He's up there. That band they're not supporting a record right now, but man, go see them. Who knows how much longer they're going to be around. The band's been around. The band's almost 40 fucking years old. Go see them. Go see Cannibal. Support all the bands on the tour. Buy their merch. One thing I know about Cannibals, they're a fucking merch band, and they always have really cool shit.
We'll never do any episode about any bands on that tour. Never going to do an episode about Municipal Waste. Never going to do an episode about Cannibal.
Never.
Oh, never.
Sorry.
A Full Hell record?
So yeah, check out Ramuh, Glowing Civilization. Like I mentioned, like members are like spread out from all over Hungary, America, Argentina. It is like some of the coolest, like most visceral sounding grindcore. Like I really love this record. It's a lot of fun. It's a quick listen. Check it out. So you can find those links below in the description. You can follow us at Instagram and Twitter at riffworshippod. Email us at riffworshippod@gmail.com. We have playlists as well, Riffs on Repeat on Spotify, and hopefully by the time this comes out, YouTube Music. We'll get that back rolling up, as well as Hits from the Crypt on Apple Music. We should have some really fun episodes coming up. One in particular that we've already talked about this band on a previous episode this year. So stay tuned. This is going to be a really fun one.
Yep.
Got some questions. I have some questions for this band for sure. Man, all right.
Anyway, for Austin, for Dylan, and for me. Goodbye, everybody.